Today, the topic is vaccinations in wildlife. This is a pretty controversial topic. I'm going to discuss vaccinating wildlife out in nature as well as in wildlife rehabilitation. Hi, I'm Amy, the founder and director of Fox Run Environmental Education. Welcome to my channel where I talk about wildlife conservation, rehabilitation, and organic gardening. Vaccination of wildlife at its core stems from concerns about the transmission of diseases. Zoonotic diseases are those diseases that can be transferred between animal and human populations. Probably the most famous zoonotic disease is rabies, and the raccoon has become the stereotypical poster child. Zoonotic diseases work both ways. During the pandemic, we had cases of wild animals contracting COVID from their human caretakers. Tigers, gorillas, and factory farmed mink all contracted COVID in captivity. Zoos began vaccinating their at risk animals. The most common rabies vector species in the US are bats, raccoons, skunks, and foxes, and in the territory of Puerto Rico, the mongoose. Rabies has been around a long time, and it was first recorded among dogs in ancient Babylonia. It is still a major problem in poor countries where about 60,000 people, mostly children, die each year from rabies transmitted by mainly dogs. Which brings us back to the core issue. Rabies is a community health problem. Zoonotic diseases are a public health concern that affects everyone in the community. European countries have been much more proactive in this area than we have been here in the USA, possibly because their communities are much older and established with a high incidence of urban wildlife. In Europe and America, it is not unusual to have foxes living in urban areas. In Europe, this is viewed through the lens of community safety versus the lens of community protection and eradication. In Germany and England, an aggressive program using trap, vaccinate, release, much as we do for feral cats, combined with an oral rabies vaccination. This has taken place over the past 20 years and has been very successful. In fact, with their example, rabies among foxes has been nearly eliminated in 13 European countries and Australia. In the US, the DNR, Department of Natural Resources, began vaccinating wildlife for rabies in 1990. They drop oral rabies vaccines in areas that have been identified as hotspots. Packets containing the vaccine in a fish meal base and covered with flavoring are often dropped from the air. This helps to develop zones of vaccinated animals. Dr. Joanne Maki stated the goal is to establish herd immunity within a rabies reservoir species. Doing so reduces virus transmission in wild animals while also reducing the risk of rabies virus exposure in domestic species and humans. This method is a little bit more problematic and harder to implement in urban areas where domestic animals may find the packets. Dropping bait from airplanes is not very precise and doesn't always give us the data we need. It is, however, cheaper and much less labor intensive. However, more targeted programs of trap, vaccinate, and release have been much more effective. The black footed ferret is an endangered species that once lived throughout the Great Plains, but now only in a few isolated areas. The black footed ferret is an example of an endangered species that recovered successfully, in part due to a vaccination program. They are susceptible to a variety of diseases, such as the plague they got from eating prairie dogs. In addition, distemper, which is common among raccoons and skunks, had lowered the ferret population. They were very close to extinction. A controlled breeding program and vaccination schedule allowed the successful reintroduction of healthy ferrets in native prairie ecosystems. In addition, due to the risk of muscelids to their population, the black footed ferret has also been given the COVID vaccine. So, why do we flounder behind here in the US? Why do some government agencies not want rehab programs to vaccinate? One issue with vaccinating any wildlife is that the vaccines are not tested on wildlife because pharmaceutical companies view that as a waste of money. Producing vaccines takes a lot of research and a lot of money. We put money into our pets and livestock and the food supply, not wildlife. So we give vaccines to wildlife that's labeled for related species. This is called off label. For example, my fawns were given vaccines and watched for problems that other ruminants, such as cows and goats, may get. I have 2 books on wildlife rehabilitation out, and I've also started publishing educational children's activity books. Proceeds go back into Fox Run and help wildlife rehabilitators. Vaccinating wildlife in rehabilitation has pros and cons for the rehabilitation facility and for the public. It also has a backlash from many state DNR and fish and wildlife organizations. One of the main pros is that it protects the people working at the facility. It also protects community members where the animals are released. And it protects the animal and allows them to live a healthier life, especially those animals who live in a community with other members of their species, like these bats. Another pro of vaccinating wildlife is data. Many rehabilitators collaborate with local universities and government agencies to learn more. Animals are vaccinated and monitored. How does immunity affect populations? Where do released animals travel? And do they display normal behaviors for these species? These are important questions. The biggest con among wildlife rehabilitators is the expense of vaccinations. These expenses come out of the rehabber's own pocket or through private donations. Wildlife rehabilitators don't get government funding. And by law, many states require rabies to be administered by a vet, which is an additional cost. As a rehabber in Kentucky for many years, I was told by Fish and Wildlife that vaccinating wildlife was not letting nature take its course. I disagree, mainly on the principle that the animals I saw in rehabilitation had issues caused by humans. They were hit by cars and mowers or caught in traps. It was not a natural event, such as not finding food or being old and too slow to outrun a predator. Wildlife rehabilitation is all about saving an animal's life so that they may be released back into the wild. Keep in mind that both the Department of Natural Resources and the Department of Fish and Wildlife get most of their funding by selling hunting, trapping, and fishing licenses. The rest of their money comes from taxpayer dollars. So their focus is not on wildlife that may be common in rehab, such as raccoons, skunks, rabbits, and squirrels. They want to protect larger game animals and curtail predators. I do encourage wildlife rehabilitators to get their pre exposure rabies shots, which are often required for vets and others that work with wildlife. That said, when I went to get mine, I had to go to the travel section of St. E Hospital since missionaries and healthcare people going to work in third world countries require rabies vaccines. All that said, make sure you get your pets vaccinated. September 28th is World Vaccine Day. India has about 20,000 deaths per year from rabies, and our neighbor Haiti has the highest rate of rabies in the Western Hemisphere. There are many veterinarian programs that go into poor countries to do vaccination programs for pets and stray animals. There is still so much to say about vaccines and rabies, but I'm running out of breath. Let me know if you have questions in the comments. Check out my opossum video to learn more about how they have been vital to helping scientists. Please like and subscribe. I'm getting close to that 1,000 subscriber mark where we can earn a few pennies on YouTube. Thanks for watching and have a fabulous day.